What up, guys, and welcome to Taking Back Mondays, your positivity podcast with Mal and Sly. Today, we are talking about self control, which, if you're watching us live and not on the recorded version where we get to do all the editing, you know it's taking a lot of self control to not throw my PC across the room. So, you know, that's what it takes. But as always, we do want to throw out there that neither of us are doctors, neither of us are trained therapists, psychiatrists, anything like that. Hit them with the hashtag.
Hashtag not a doctor.
Uh, so we both have experience in this, but neither of us can say that we finished our degrees in this. Um,
My degree is in kinesiology, so I can.
How's degrees in kinesiology, and I quit a year out. I needed another year and was like, I don't need this degree as much as I think I do.
Yep.
So, with that, again, self control. One of the greatest things that any ninja could have. So, while I try to make sure everything's working right, I'm going to pass it to everybody's favorite fourth degree black belt, Ninja, for a quick touch on what self control is.
All right, guys. What's going on? Self-control, to me. Now, like Sly said, I'm a fourth degree black belt. I'm a martial arts instructor. I'm a fitness instructor. That's what I do. So my favorite answer when I ask my students, guys, what does self-control mean? My favorite answer is, it means you control yourself. Yep. That's not wrong. But self-control is being able to regulate yourself physically, emotionally, mentally. It is, what it says in the actual word. It's having control over your emotions, over your physicality, over your actions. And, we've been talking about the 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. And last week, we talked about motivation and kind of how that fits into everything. And you're going to see as we go through these 5 pillars over these next couple weeks, guys, that they all fit together. Like, it's hard to talk about one without talking about others, right? So, like today, we're talking about self-control. We're talking about self-regulation, but we're probably going to be touching on some of those other pillars that we're going to get more in depth into later. But to me, self-control and self-regulation, all 5 of those pillars are so important to each other because of kind of the interconnectedness that they have in, building up emotional intelligence, which is why it's called 5 pillars of emotional intelligence. Those 5 things hold up emotional intelligence. But self-control, self-regulation is vitally important when you are talking about setting, maintaining, and achieving the goals that you have, whatever that goal is, anywhere in your life, professionally, personally, financially, short-term goals, long-term goals, more so definitely for long-term goals than for short-term goals, depending on how short-term we're talking. But self-control and being able to regulate yourself and regulate your actions and emotions are going to be, without that, you're not going to achieve your long-term goals. It won't happen. And if it does happen by some way, it's going to be at a drastically decreased pace than if you were practicing self-control and self-regulation.
Yeah. So for me, and you can change this. You can tweak this if you want, because this is a give and take. Chat, this is a give and take with you as well. If you're here live, if you're on YouTube, comments. This is all an open conversation.
It's what we are all about. When I start a conversation about it, guys.
So with that, we talked last time about motivation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about motivation was the gasoline in the car.
Yep.
Right? It was that go power.
Yep.
Like, with that same metaphor in mind, like self-control is the gas pedal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And It's that easy, like the easy go to is the steering wheel. You turn it and it takes, but I feel like self control is much more of this balance of you know little things that you can do in self control can make a huge impact down the line.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
we talked last week about the idea that character isn't made in one big decision or one big mistake. It's made in little decisions that add up to get you to the spot where you make that big decision. And I think that's where self control plays into me is that mindset of being
100%. 3, 2, 1, 1, 1. Stand by. Please stand by. Experiencing technical difficulties. This is where we must exercise immense self control to not destroy our setups.
yeah.
Moving on.
So the PC may need to be restarted, but we'll deal with that later at another time,
Sully forth.
and we will keep going. But yeah, so that's the self control to me. That's the the minor things I think a lot of times take the most self control. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy, uh, you know, trying to think. All the things that are coming to my mind right now are a little too deep and a little too big, especially given the last couple of weeks on Twitter and in gaming. Uh, but like,
It's been a rough one.
yeah, it's easy as you know. Uh, sure, I'm gonna go with it. It's
Yeah.
easy as a man who's loyal to I'm not going to do this, right? I'm not gonna do this to my wife. I'm not gonna cheat on my wife. I'm not gonna, you know. But in reality, it's the little things that add up to that. That big moment is made easier or harder based on like the side looks that you're giving other women.
Mhm.
And that's a big thing. Um, and it was just because it's all that I could think of off the top of my head. But
For
it,
sure.
it really is like the more I go to other women with my looks or with this, the easier that decision to cheat on my wife may be one day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's those little things that take the most self control. As a fat man, I can sit down and tell myself I'm not going to eat an entire birthday cake, right? And that's easy. But having a second Star Crunch is one of those little things, and you can make all sorts of excuses of like, well, I went to the gym today, like I mowed the yard afterwards, I did all these things, and you start to get that slippery slope of losing that self control. Where at some point in time you may just sit down and eat an entire cake if you continue to let yourself make excuses of why.
Yep. Yep. Very true. Um, and I think that with that in mind, thinking about how those small um decisions, add up to the larger decisions and impact your larger
Yeah.
decisions. Um, that's really where I think people look, and kind of like what you were saying too, with like, it's easy to say like I'm not gonna eat a whole cake, but it's those little things. Um, and that's what I think people don't always think about when they think about like self control. So people think like, oh, I have good self control. Like I got mad at someone and I didn't go try to beat the crap out of them. Like, oh, you know, I don't go around murdering people, so I have control of myself and my emotions. And they're thinking about those like huge, drastic decisions that like I would hope most people that don't have some type of illness, or some type of issue, don't make those decisions. They don't make the decisions to go around murdering people. So that's not really an argument into how you have good self control. Self control is, again, self control is those day to day things. Self control is knowing what your goal is and making a conscious effort every day to do those small steps that build up to the whole. Doing those little things every day that are going to add up to your overall goal. Like, let's say your overall goal is to, I don't know, let's say it's to, get in better shape. Well, the little steps of like having the control to go to the gym, having the control to, eat healthy, having the control, and even if it's like a goal of, here's another good one, a goal of saving, right? A financial goal. You want to save up, you want to save money. Well, those little steps could be setting $5 aside every week. And if you have the control to make yourself do that every week and to stick on that path and to not, dip into that money, eventually you will see a result from it. Those the little tiny thing and the small things, I think, are the easiest things to not have self-control over, because you view them as like inconsequential, or you view them as like, oh, like it's so small, like, that doesn't matter. I can do this. It's fine. And we, like you were saying, we justify it to ourselves by saying like we have control when it comes to the bigger things. So like this little thing isn't, but like you were saying, if you keep giving into the little things, it snowballs to make a bigger decision easier, and then a bigger thing easier, and then a bigger thing easier, and it just keeps going.
Yeah, and we talked about last week the old proverb, he who can be trusted with many things, or he who can be trusted with small things can be trusted with many things.
Mm-hmm.
So that idea of self control, the more you have self control over the little things, the easier it will be to have self control over the big things.
Exactly.
Um, I do want to read real quick just because this is a really good point.
For sure.
Ocean, our man, the father of the peace movement, uh, said, "There's one thing, though, one of the most important aspects of this and hardest is getting to know thyself in order to control the self. A lot of us are so into helping others that we forget about ourselves. Once once you dive into working on knowing yourself, self-control becomes more present and automatic." Uh, so Mal said at the beginning of the podcast that it's really hard to talk about one pillar without talking about other pillars.
For sure.
Ocean, without knowing what we were doing, just coming in here for the first time and hanging out, hit on two other pillars all at once while talking about self control.
Talk about
I
self
mean,
awareness.
he's talking about self control, self awareness, and empathy
Mm-hmm.
all in the same time, and all of those are structural pillars of emotional intelligence.
Yeah. You
Uh,
have to have everything. And again, that's why, you know, yes, self-awareness breeds self-control. 100%.
yeah,
It's the more self-awareness you have, the easier it's going to be to have self-control, because when you're aware of your own emotions, and when you're aware of the goals, and you're aware of how you react to external stimuli and internal stimuli, then it becomes easier to control your reaction to said stimuli. If you get unreasonably angry at little things and you don't understand why you're angry, it's going to be very hard to control that emotion because you don't know where that emotion is coming from. But when you get to realize where the emotion is coming from and where the root of that emotion is, then you can address the root of that emotion and then control your reaction to it.
yeah, and I mean, and from a very real standpoint, so uh, everybody knows we don't get political, we don't get religious, we don't get a lot of things uh, in streaming world. But from a very real standpoint, my old job was as a assistant college pastor. Most of y'all know that. I've worked for churches, and big part of my job was leading leadership teams inside. of what we're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
right? So a big part of my job was getting leadership teams to understand emotional intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
strengths, and personalities, to where they could mesh well together and be the most effective leadership team possible, right? Uh, so with that, like this whole idea of emotional intelligence is literally the biggest reason that these five pillars are so important. It's because emotional intelligence is exactly what you're talking about right now, right? The overall concept is that ability to come in and say, hey, like I'm gonna hold back on how I'm angry right now,
Mm-hmm.
and the way I'm gonna reply to what you just said to me is gonna do nothing but start a fight, and that's not what I want.
Yes.
So I'm gonna reissue how I'm gonna reply to you,
Yes.
right? That's the whole idea of emotional intelligence, is knowing each other and yourself well enough. So like that's, you know, we're talking about self control today, but like the self regulation and the empathy part that Ocean's hitting on, they play so deeply into each pillar because uh, they're at the root of each pillar, really.
Yeah.
Because
Uh,
without those two, you're really not going for a lot of things.
100%. That's why I'm excited at the end of this. Once we're kind of done breaking down each of them, we're going to go back and we're going to talk about all five of those pillars, and then we're going to talk about we're going to have a conversation about emotional intelligence as a whole and how each of those things fits together and works together. And we're already talking a lot about it because, like we said, it's impossible to isolate each of them because
Yeah.
they do have such a uh, interconnected relationship. Um, and something that I want to touch on real fast, or not real fast, I don't know, we'll see where it goes, is with self control. We were saying that self control is so vital in setting, maintaining, achieving goals, short term goals, long term goals. I want to talk a little bit about goals as well because I think, goals and self control tie so closely together, they're hand in hand. The kind of goal setting that we teach at my job and the kind of
Wait,
goal
can I
setting
guess?
that,
Can I guess?
yeah,
Y'all teach smart goals?
well, we certainly don't teach dumb goals. Yeah.
I love I love smart goals.
Yep. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Um, and having those things makes controlling yourself and keeping yourself on track easier than if you just say, let's say I have a goal that says, I want to go to the moon. That's a really broad goal. You're not going to have an easy time staying on track with that because there's so many steps between where you are now and going to the moon, unless you're an astronaut that's currently watching, in which case, hey, what's up? But you have to make your goals specific so that you can hold yourself accountable and that you can control yourself to stay on that goal. If my overall goal is I want to be stronger, that's a very broad goal. I need to specify that more. I could say I want to increase, the weight I do on this exercise by 10 pounds or by X pounds. You need something that is very specific. Or I want to have a stronger bench press. Let's say that, and then it has to be measurable where it says I want to increase it by 10 pounds. You have to have some measure or some method of measuring success. Otherwise, you don't know when you're getting close to your goal or when you're falling further from your goal. It has to be attainable. Obviously, I can't have a goal of I want to have gills and breathe underwater like a fish because that's not attainable, nor is that realistic, which is the next
Yeah.
part.
I
Um,
I can't be like I want to weigh 110 pounds like Malnoxx does,
hey,
because even if I weren't a fat guy by nature, I'm still on a bigger frame. When I was at my healthiest in playing four sports, I was bigger than everybody else. Even though, I was muscular and built out, I was just bigger.
yep,
It happens. People have different body types. So yeah, attainable is a huge thing and realistically attainable.
Yes. And then also a realistic time frame, and having it has to be timely, but it has to also be in a realistic time frame. You can't say, I want to be a college professor next year, and you're, a freshman in high school. That doesn't work. So it has to be a realistic timeline, and it has to be timely. But having all those things makes it easier to keep yourself on track, I feel. Because if you have something that's measurable, and you can see that you're getting closer to that goal and that you're making progress, A, that's going to increase your motivation, like we talked about last week, and then B, that's going to make it easier for you to say no to the things that would steer you away from your goal or drive you off course. Because when you're seeing that progress and when you're able to measure that progress, and you have, a long-term goal that you've broken up into shorter goals, into short-term goals, and you're able to go down and check it off that list. Like we talked about with motivation, having that list and being able to check things off and giving yourself that burst of motivation, that kind of endorphin boost of, feeling good about yourself because I checked something off the list. When you're doing that, it makes it easier and you keep that momentum going, and it increases the likelihood that you'll be able to say, no to something that would set you backwards in your goals.
Yeah. And can I just throw out there, goals should always be something that you control, not outside sources control. Because we take this conversation back to streaming a lot because both of us are streamers, content creators. It's really hard for me to make the goal of I want to gain 100 followers this week.
Yep.
Right? Because I don't control what people click the follow button. I don't control people clicking into the channel. What I should be going for is I want to be consistent this week with being on time to my stream, staying for the full length of my stream. I want the things that you have control over, because if you're setting goals that you have control over, those outside things will happen, but you don't have control. So to say I'm going to gain 100 followers this week, well, Dr. Disrespect could come back to Twitch tomorrow, and like it's going to pull numbers from everybody. It's going to be really hard for you to gain 100 followers.
And the thing is, like you said, you have to focus on what you have direct control over. So you can't focus on those external things that, I can't control someone else's browser and make them, make their computer open twitch.tv/Malnoxx unless you know how to do that, and then DM me.
Yeah, if you got that.
Yeah, lay it on me. But no, you can control, like you were saying, Sly, you can control being on time, staying for the full length. You can control how you promote yourself. You can control the image that you're putting out into the world that is hopefully going to attract people to come by your stream. You can control how often you're posting on social media. You can control what you're posting on Instagram. You can control your branding. You can control your networking. You can control the interactions that you have with other streamers and the interactions that you have with your viewers that are going to make them want to come back and make them want to tell your friends about you to then have their friends come and follow your stream. So the other thing, in that same vein is, you have to, like I said, you have to focus on what you can control and not obsess and worry about the things that are outside of your control, or not let those things outside of your control affect you and get you down. And it's easy for me to say. It's not an easy thing to do, for sure.
I'm literally the worst at this pillar is what I would say I'm the worst at. How many times have I told you, been like, dude, I'm gonna make four good thought out Twitter posts this week.
Mm-hmm.
And how many times have I followed through with 4 good thought out Twitter posts in a week?
At least a few times.
At least a few.
At least a few times.
Not every week though.
But yeah, it's the having the control, the self-control, and this again, it's so hard to talk about one, not the other. This ties back into having, the self-awareness and things as well to say, when I'm making these goals for good thought out Twitter posts or posting on Instagram every day, you have to think, now, is that something that, knowing me, is that something that's a realistic thing, a realistic goal, or am I setting myself up to fail on this? Should I start smaller, and then once that becomes habitual, should I, increase that amount? Should I, continue pushing and then maybe add some more to that, as opposed to, starting too big too soon. And then it's so easy to say, well, that was too hard. I tried. It didn't work, and it's easier to give in to the impulse to quit when you're not seeing those results than it is where if you made it something that was realistic and something that was attainable and something that was in line with yourself and what is realistic for you and what you're capable of, then it's going to be easier to keep the control over yourself and to, ramp it up later as you're improving yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think for me, this is the, we're gonna go through all of them, but for me, this is the one that I harp on to myself a lot.
Mm-hmm.
For those of y'all who know me, Ocean knows this, Mal knows this. I write everything. Like I don't even like type. Mal gets notes from me, like pictures of notes from me, and it's not like me doing a Word doc and sending it to him. It's I've handwritten out 3 pages worth of notes,
Mm-hmm.
and then taken my phone, taken pictures, and sent it to him. And for me, this is the one that I'm always like harping on because I write everything down, right? I write my goals down, I write my stuff down, and with that, like self-control is always like circled above my goals because like that's the hardest one for me. Like we talked about last week, my end goal in life is for people to say that I loved them well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when people are at my funeral, they can say Sly loved people really well. Well, with that, it's really easy to be empathetic. It's really easy to take back and look at yourself instead of look at others, right? It's really
Yeah.
easy to self-regulate, to be self.
It really breaks down to, at the end of the day, it breaks down to you need to know. And we talked about this. With our motivation last episode when we got into motivation. But at the end of the day, you have to know your why, and that's going to tie back into all of this that we're talking about. If you know why you're doing something, it's going to be easier to have control over those actions that might set you back from that end goal. If you know your why, it's going to make everything, I'm not saying it's going to make everything easy, but it's going to make everything easier because you have an ultimate end goal. And that ultimate end goal can then be broken up into smaller pieces, and you can look at that and say, all right, now I have this end goal, right? This is the goal. This is my life ambition here, right? So I have my life ambition. Boom. And now let's say to get to this life ambition, what do I need to do? Where do I need to be 20 years from now? Where do I need to be 10 years from now? 5 years, 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, and you can work backwards from your ultimate end goal, from your why. You can then work backwards and you can break down those small individual steps that will keep building, gaining momentum to achieve that ultimate end goal. Don't you agree, Sly?
100%. I was totally here for that entire thing, and Discord did not break again.
No, it didn't. That's definitely not why I just kept rambling.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, to recap, like we said last week, know your why. Because when you have your why, you have your ultimate ambition. You can break that ambition down into the smaller digestible steps that you need to achieve, to get to that goal, the smaller steps that will increase your motivation, that will help you stay on that path, help you achieving goals consistently. And then, when you know why you're doing something, it's easier to stick with it. If I just say, I want to be a partner on Twitch, and that's all I say. I say, I want to be a partner on Twitch. That's my goal. But I don't put a why behind it. I don't have something that's saying, I want to be a partner on Twitch because I want to be impactful in people's lives. I want to be a partner on Twitch because I want to create a space for people where they can be themselves and where they can come and they can feel valued and they can feel safe and they can feel like they want to, like they're able to express themselves and be themselves and be in a safe spot here where they're not going to get judged. No one's going to, there's a bully-free zone, y'all. So
sounds like you thought that out.
A little bit.
Shit right there. That's
maybe.
Shit right there.
Maybe. I might have thought that out.
I feel like we're the same person in a lot of these things.
I feel like we are, Sly. I feel like that's why we get along so well. But when you have that ultimate why, I want to be a Twitch partner. This is why I want to be a Twitch partner. It's easier to keep that. It's easier, A, to break down, and then B, it's easier to stay consistent and to have the control to do the things you need to do when you need to do them. And that there's a lot of other life skills that we can tie into this, but I think self-control it touches on a lot of them. And I think one thing with self-control as well that you can tie into self-control is integrity. And I think a big part of it is you have to be able to hold yourself accountable. Now, to me, integrity means doing the right thing even when no one's watching. And you have to be able to hold yourself accountable and know what the right thing is to you to say, well, no one's watching right now. Like, I can, slack off on this, or I don't need to do this right now. Like, no one's going to find out, but you'll know. And being able to hold yourself accountable is huge. And there's definitely, you need to have other people hold you accountable as well, because just holding yourself accountable in the long run is not going to work. I have Sly. If I slack off and I disappear from streaming for 16 months, I'm going to have Sly breathing down my neck like, hey, bud, where are you? What's going on? Hey, how you doing? Hey, when you going to come back, man? Not that that's happened. That was just a hypothetical situation.
Or
so you definitely need other people to hold you accountable, but being able to hold yourself accountable and being able to have that integrity to do what you need to do when you need to do it, even if no one's around to tell you to do it, is so important to maintaining that self-control. Because again, like Sly said, you slip up once and it's easier to slip up again and again and again. But in that same vein, it's also important that if you lose self-control, don't throw the rest of the day away. Don't throw the rest of the goal away because you slipped up once. And there's a quote that I really like about this. And I need to pull out my calculator for it because I can't remember exactly.
You have it on your calculator?
No, but I can't remember exactly.
I'm like, this man's got a TI-81 next to his computer that he's like pulled out and like written down.
No. So, all right, let me give you a scenario here, Sly. If you have $86,400 and someone steals $7 from you, do you burn the rest of it?
No.
Exactly. So there's 86,400 seconds in a day. That's why I need my calculator. If you fuck up for 7 seconds, do you throw the rest of the day away? No. And so you have to have the self-control to control your reaction, control your emotions, learn from what happened, but then move forward in a positive and impactful and productive way with the rest of the time that you have. Because you can't let, yourself or, someone else, for that matter, take the rest of your day away from you because of 7 seconds, right? If you messed up, you slipped up. Let's say I didn't go to the gym one day, and I was supposed to go to the gym that day, and I didn't. I'm not going to say, well, I'm never going to the gym again. I'm done. You have to have the self-control, the self-awareness to push on with your goals. Don't let one bad day, don't let one bad minute affect the rest of your life.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a big reason why I say positivity is a choice, right?
Yeah.
Because if it's a feeling, when something bad happens, you get rid of the other 826 whatever,
Yeah.
I don't remember the number. But something bad happens
86,400.
and positivity is a feeling, you get rid of the rest of your day, right? If positivity is a choice, you continue to make choices for the rest of your day, and positivity gets to be one of those choices that you can continually make
Mhm.
over and over and over again.
Yep.
Right? And I mean, it's just that's that's just like the thing. There's always something worse, right? So positivity gets to be that choice. Yeah. Oh no, my car broke down. Well, I woke up on this side of the grass. I'm breathing. I can get my car fixed. If I can't get my car fixed, I have a vehicle that I can borrow from my parents. There's always a way to spin it to where you get to make the choice to be positive in those moments and push forward with positivity, right?
Definitely. And when you have self-control and when you have a high level of self-control, it changes a lot of the interactions that you can have with people in a great way. Because if you yeah, well, I'm not gonna say always a great way, because sometimes people get mad if you have a lot of self-control and they don't. um if you get in an argument with someone and you're able to keep your emotions calm and you're able to you know keep yourself from getting physical, and you
Even
can
not even physical. Just keep yourself from getting angry.
yeah, exactly, keep your emotions in check. uh you're going to have the upper hand in the argument because you're saying calm, cool, and collected while the other person is reacting based off of emotion and they're heated. Um, and B, sometimes it can be really fun when you're very calm, cool, and collected and the other person just keeps getting more heated because you're not getting angry. But don't take pleasure in torturing others that way. But also have good self control because you're going to be able to think clearly and they're going to be thinking through a red filter.
Yeah. And I mean, we have recent experience with this where people are angry at something I've done or done, am going to do, and I can just be like, "Cool, like I'm sorry you feel that way. Like I'm sorry this action has hurt you in that way." And keep yourself, in control of of your emotions, because that's, I mean, self-regulation, self-control. That's one of the truest forms and probably the easiest form for me. Like, not eating that second Star Crunch is gonna be real hard for me because Star Crunches are good. But like being able to let somebody rip me a new one and yell at me and be able to come back with, "I'm sorry that hurt you in that way." Like, how can we work through like that side of things is the easy side of self control for me.
And
So, like,
that you just said is also why it's so hard to talk about these things separately, because that also is a
empathy
testament
and
to the empathy that you have.
yeah, that's the empathy, and yeah, you can't talk about one without the other. But yeah, you know it's just true that literally every interaction you have with anything or anyone takes some form of self-control
Mhm.
to some sort of level. Uh, so like it takes practice, right? You could again. I'm gonna hark back to it because you're a fucking fourth degree ninja, and it's amazing. Fourth degree black belt, right?
Yep.
Can you break a brick with your bare hands, Mal?
Yes, sir.
Can you break a board with your bare hands?
Yes, sir.
Would it have ever crossed your mind to try to break a brick before you could break a board?
No, sir.
So
That'd be dumb.
push through with the little things and grow from there. You can't run before you can walk. You can't walk before you can crawl. You can't break a brick before you can break a board. Like
Yep.
go through with the little things, right?
100%. 100%. And I talked about this a little bit last time too, but there's a philosophy, or a philosophical, um, uh, idea in Confucius thinking that is Junzi, or translates in Korean to Kunjo, which is how I've learned it, which is the idea of the perfect gentleman, which breaks down to essentially trying to be more perfect every day, even though it's known that perfection is impossible. It's trying to get up every day and be a little bit better than you were yesterday, whether that's physically, whether that's emotionally, whether that's mentally. It could be in the interactions you have with other people. It could be in the interactions you have within your own self, in your own mind. But self-control plays into that, where yesterday, let's say you did something where you lack self-control, but tomorrow is another day you have, another chance you have to try to be more perfect than you were yesterday. So you wake up the next day and you try again. It's like I say at the end of every one of my streams, the sun will rise and we will try again. And it's a quote from 21 Pilots, but it's so true, because every day we have the opportunity to be better than we were the day before that. If we can make it to that next day, we have the chance to be better. We have the chance to exercise self-control. We have the chance to move closer to one of our goals. We have the chance to get closer to our why. And yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. And I would go as far to say that, that's not even a daily thing, that's an hourly thing, a minute thing.
Exactly.
You don't have to wait for New Year's to make a resolution. You don't have to wait for the sun to rise to try to be better than you were yesterday. You can set out and say, you know what? I just fucked up. I just screwed up. I'm gonna be better starting now.
Yep.
Right.
And self-awareness is a big part of that, of knowing I just fucked up and not having to reflect on it and say, man, like a week ago I did this and that probably wasn't a good idea. I probably shouldn't have done that. Having the awareness to be like, I did this shit. Like, I know I just did this. And the more aware you are, the faster you can get into that process, like you were saying, Sly, of trying to be better now.
Yeah. With that, I think that's a good wrapping point.
Yeah.
So, as we left off last week, we're gonna do it again because they just blend together so well.
Real fast though, before we do that, Sly, because I don't think we did at the beginning. Tell everyone where they can find you on the internet.
Oh, I am. It's that Sly Guy absolutely everywhere. If you can put a website and a / before it's that Sly Guy, you can find me there.
Rub it in. Go ahead. I'm Malnoxx everywhere except Twitter, where I'm Malnoxx TV, because the guy that has the tag Malnoxx tweets once a year. Just give me the tag. Hashtag release the tag. That was terrifying. But yeah, if you guys could, Twitter, if you're listening, I know you're listening, Twitter. So if you could just give me that tag, I'd be appreciative. Can I get that little check mark next to my name? I'm the true Malnoxx. Come on.
Hey, we giving out check marks, but with that, guys, as always, love you guys. Don't forget to love each other. and be characters that make an impact on the world you're living in. Because
The sun will rise, and we will try again.
I guess